So as an outsider looking into Gateshead, things look very rosy at the minute. They're doing very well in the league. They are pushing into the playoffs in the National League, but behind the scenes, things are far from rosy. Things are really not going very well at all, and we're going to look at it all in this video. So once again, this video is sponsored by One Football. You're going to stay up to date with loads of different football news, scores, transfers, league table updates, all sorts of different things around the world, English football as well as in Europe and further, loads of different content. Make sure that you go and download that. The link is in the top line of the description. In April 2018, previous Gateshead owners Richard and Julie Bennett put the club up for sale. The club was eventually sold to Ranjan Varghese, a Hong Kong-based businessman, and he promised to deliver an exciting, progressive, long-term vision with the club, and his arrival was initially met with a lot of cautious optimism. It sounded good, but Gateshead didn't really know whether to trust him or not at this point. A little bit of background on Gateshead themselves is their 10th season in the 5th tier in a row, so the second longest serving team in the 5th tier. Do you know who the longest serving one is? Let me know in the comment section down below. The club this season have been getting average attendances of around about 650, which for a club in the National League is one of the lowest in the league, and they've got a massive stadium, 11,800 all seated it holds. The club said that they had the 5th lowest budget in the National League for the 18-19 season, and they've actually had an embargo placed on them, so they can't actually sign anyone since September. Now this wasn't actually announced at the time, it was only rumoured, and it was only actually confessed in December after the club initially categorically denied it, and they eventually confessed to it after the local newspapers reported on it. And instantly when this sort of thing's happening where a club is denying something and then they confess to it, it sort of says there's something really that they are trying to hide, and it means that fans will struggle to trust a club in this situation. The club said that this embargo was just a technicality of the takeover in the summer and that it would be sorted by mid-January. But during January, manager Steve Watson, who is essentially glue to this football club, kept them all together after a mass exodus at the end of the 17-18 season. He's built a fantastic squad that's doing so well in the league. They're currently up in the playoffs at this point. He decided to resign and go and become manager of National League North side York City. Now he was replaced by under-19s manager Ben Clark, a club legend at Gateshead, and he's actually been doing fantastically as well himself. They're still up in and around the playoff area, which for a club in their situation, as I'm going to dig into further, is absolutely incredible. Also, their general manager Mike Coulson left. He's been at the club for over 20 years. He's a bit of a club hero. Fans love him, and he left, and he revealed all why he left in an interview, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Quite an eye-opening interview, and it gives away a lot of information about the real extent of things that are going on at the club. Now, one of the things that's brought a lot of concern to the Gateshead fans is the departure of two important players. Scott Bowden, who was the club's top scorer at the time, he left at the end of January. Chesterfield approached the club to go and sign the current top scorer at Gateshead. This is one of the parts that Coulson said was one of the reasons that he left the club, because he, alongside manager Ben Clark, as well as Michael Williams, is also a key person at the club, they all objected to Bowden being sold, and they sat down with Varghese and Joseph Kaller, who I'm going to talk about quite a lot in the rest of this video. He's the chief financial advisor at the club, but really he has a lot more of a say, and things are all a bit sketchy and bit of grey areas with him involved. But anyway, they agreed, yeah, we're not going to sell him, we're going to wait until we can get a replacement in, and that will happen once the embargo has lifted. That was on a Tuesday evening that meeting happened, and that was how it was left. But then Coulson went on the Wednesday morning and he opened his emails to see some transfer papers from Chesterfield. He said, I phoned them to see what happened, and they told me that Joseph Kaller had called them on Tuesday night to ask them to take Bowden quickly. This was the tipping point for leaving. I wasn't prepared to work with people that I cannot trust. And this, for a man that's been working at the club for over 20 years, this is the tipping point. It's pretty sad that he's given so much service to the club and it's all ended like this. Now, in terms of player sales, this continued. Fraser Kerr was an important player for them at centre-back. He also left the club. He was sold to Hartlepool, and this is when a lot of the problems were first reported and you started to see the real depth of the problems that were going on at the club. Because Kaller said that Kerr is a championship quality defender. He's a player that has been at the club for the previous 2 years. He's one that did not want to leave. He said that he didn't want to leave, but he felt he had to. He showed loyalty over the summer of 2018. He was one of 3 players that stayed, and The fans absolutely love him, but he was sold to Hartlepool, local rivals, for just £4,000, which is a stupidly low amount of money for a player that is reportedly so highly rated by the club. Also, a player in a similar situation that also showed loyalty to the club, Scott Barrow, the captain. He was apparently touted to a load of other clubs, but he also did not want to leave. Further on in Coulson's interview, he spoke about the root cause of these problems, and that lies with the previous owner, Richard Bennett, who did not do his due diligence on the new owners. He wanted to sell and get out of there, and that's essentially what he did. Despite Calla denying this, Coulson says that Calla was actually going to be the new owner of the club, but he failed the FA's directors and owners test. He'd also previously been in failed takeover bids for Morecambe and Portsmouth, so there's clearly something that really inhibits him from being an owner, and something that means that the FA just don't trust him. So this is when Vargas came in. Vargas was the owner and Calla was just going to be the chief financial advisor, but in reality, Coulson says that Calla is essentially the owner. Also, the previous owner, Bennett, advertised the club as debt-free, whereas in fact it was £100,000 in debt, which annoyed the people that were owed money. But anyway, Coulson expressed his concerns about Calla's involvement to the National League, who've now transferred it to the FA, and they're investigating this whole situation. And with Calla making all the key decisions, one of the really controversial ones that he did, that's really a sad decision that he made at the start of the season, was that he did not trust the turnstile operators. So he sacked them all. They'd all been there as volunteers, working for the club for free. And this is what non-league football is all about, having loads of volunteers that do loads for the club. And these guys, they'd worked for years for the club, and Calla came in and basically said, I don't trust you to do your job. Now, Calla does the turnstiles by himself, and also there is no way of actually tracking the number of people that go through these turnstiles anymore, apparently, so the actual attendances have been announced as a lot lower than what they actually are if you look at a head count. With Gateshead fans expressing their concerns and planning protests, Calla came out in an interview on the 5th of March and basically said that everything is fine. He says that he believes talk of a crisis at Gateshead is over the top and asks for fans to look at the bigger picture. I don't know why the fans are worrying. I think it's the first time the club has its finances in order. In the past, the club was losing £100,000 a month, and there were owners who were happy to lose that money until they ran out. Our philosophy is that every business must be self-sustainable, and that's what we are doing. If any fans are worried, they should try and help the club, either financially or coming to games and paying a full price ticket. The actual fans who pay at games is less than 450, and you cannot sustain a professional club on those gates. 80% of takings are either concessions or students, and the money taken works out at £9 per person, which is a very strange move for a club to basically call out fans who aren't paying a full price adult ticket. And why should you, if you're not an adult, if you're under 16 or you're a concession and you don't need to pay that adult ticket, then why should you be made to pay that? That's essentially a message that he's trying to get across there, which I think is a very odd one. He went on to say that the expenses at the club were around £200,000 a month, and now it's more like £40,000. Last season, this club spent £1.8 million to generate 54 points. Today, we've spent £500,000 and to maybe reach 76 to 78 points. This is a success in itself. We should all be proud of our players, as they are lions, and I love them all. Now, bear in mind that this is on the 5th of March that he's come out and said this, that there's nothing for the fans to worry about and that there's no crisis. On the 6th of March, one day later, it was announced that the club were given a £20,000 winding up order due to unpaid tax. And this led to 2 days later, on the 8th of March, owner Vargas putting the club up for sale for just £1. Now, I think that suggests there is something that's not quite right at the club. Vargas also said that any prospective owners need to be vetted by the fans, which is also a very interesting thing to say. I mean, it's a good thing that the fans can essentially have a look at the owner and decide whether they like him or not, but it's very unconventional. Vargas did say though that he is going to stay until the end of the current season because he has issued a bond with the National League, which they're going to get £200,000 back from them, which is going to help them with their financial problems. Looking at positives, the winding up order has apparently now been dismissed because the debt has been paid, which is a really good thing for the club. But through all of this, the club at the time of being put up for sale for £1 was actually sitting inside the playoffs in 7th position. That is nothing short of phenomenal. Literally, it's absolutely incredible what is going on at that club. On the pitch, off the pitch is a totally different story, but on the pitch, things are going so well, and the players and management deserve so much credit for the success that they're having against all the odds. Can they become a really big club, potentially progress onto the Football League? Can they make it through the playoffs this season against all odds? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I hope, regardless of anything, they do come out the other end and they don't end up in any serious trouble as a football club. If you're new here, hit that like button and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the season. If you could help me get there, that'd be absolutely awesome. So yeah, I hope to see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.